What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and today we have a special one. We are going to talk not about the players in particular, but about the market. At this point, I have ranked the players so many times. We've talked about all of the prospects, but we have rookie drafts coming up. We have the NFL draft coming up. Dynasty leagues are as hot as they've ever been right now, where you can finally make trades and get replies in your inbox from trades that you're sending out. So I have one of my favorite people in the industry to talk about the market. We have Jakob Sanderson. How's it going?
I'm pumped, man. This is my favorite week of the year. Draft is just a few days away. The full brunt of the post-draft rookie drafts is coming up soon. I'm so excited. Great time to be talking through the class, but specifically, I've been in some pre-draft rookie drafts already this week, and I'm getting the offers when I'm on the clock or about to come on the clock or want to have a player, how to value these picks in conjunction with the veterans and the wider market is going to be top of mind in all of those discussions. So excited to get into that today.
Yeah, that's why I figured I'd have you on. What we're going to do today is talk about the class by and large, sort of what our thoughts are on it, how we're maneuvering around rookie drafts, and then talk about each tier where it's not really the rankings don't really matter, but it's more, if like 102 to 106 is a tier, and then kind of how we're attacking each of those. So I think people are curious, especially the way that I sort of see this video in my head is if you are just in the last week or two getting back into Dynasty, your rookie draft is coming up, and it's just sort of time to see how you should feel about, you essentially, at least how my leagues work, I assume it's similar to you where you have 15 plus leagues, 20 plus leagues. I don't know exactly where I'm picking in all of them, right? So this time of year, you click on and it's like, oh shit, I got the 107 in this league. What the hell am I going to do with it? So I'm curious by and large here. Really, this is what the elephant in the room is that this is a weaker class on the surface. Everybody is down on this class. Everyone's saying it's interesting because there was like, oh, go buy these picks, right? Maybe just like a year ago, people were kind of higher on this class. Things go south. Arch doesn't declare. A whole other slew of things happen. And now we're here where this is, to me, one of the more, from a market standpoint, I brought Jakob on because I think Jakob does great analysis in terms of the market. I know back in the day you used to have like the Pareto principles where you kind of talk through the market and how you're attacking each of your leagues. But it's very weird where we now have rookie drafts that feel super depressed, right? Like the 109 is trading at like an early second price tag. But it's not as simple as it was. Like maybe if you're a little, maybe not even out on a draft class, but let's say last year I was like, I don't really like the 110. You could probably trade the 110 for a 2026 first, right? Like there were days in Dynasty rookie drafts where you could just trade a mid to late first, get a first in the future. That's not happening now. If you want to move off your 110, no one is coming to the table to give you their 2027 first, even if it's late. So I'm curious kind of how you've been thinking through this class in particular, because I think that there's like a almost like gridlock where the liquidity of the future picks are as high, it's not liquid. There's a premium on them. And then these picks are almost more liquid than they've ever been because nobody really wants them. So how are you sort of thinking through that?
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And I think it's going to be different from league to league. Like, I still suspect if you're in a very home league type environment that's not online, that's not that plugged in, where I reckon maybe 4 or 5 guys in your draft are not spending a lot of time and now analyzing these rookies pre-draft. They're not watching this stream right now, and they're kind of taking a look the day or two before their rookie draft. They might still be a little bit more anchored to what a usual rookie pick is, and maybe you can exploit that. But if you're in, a more plugged in league that's very tied to the content, you are getting, like you said, a much lower value on some of these picks. So to me, the way I'm trying to approach it is to kind of keep a couple things in mind. One, you want to be really team dependent in terms of where you're trading in and out, because if you have a contending team, and I see you have on the site beside us, contenders hold, rebuilders hold. I'm going to see how those graphics come into play, but it is a different environment. Like, if your goal is to get immediate production and you're sitting in that late first, early second area, this is probably a reasonable opportunity to go to a team that's a little long in the tooth, looking to rebuild, and maybe you do just convert that straight into points. But if you're not, I think the goal is trying to balance chasing ceiling in a class that doesn't have a lot of high ceiling prospects, while also trying to make sure to stack value, because maybe the ceiling in this class in a lot of cases comes from hitting a couple of doubles, and then in a year from now you trade a couple of these players with a pick and you go get a superstar, because that's some of the access to some of those higher ceiling players, if you don't have room for that production that you're trying to instantly trade it for right now.
Yeah, like very easily we could see. I don't know, like we're not huge fans of Mendoza, but Mendoza comes out and throws for 20 plus touchdowns or 25 plus touchdowns. All of a sudden, he's a hot commodity. There's outs here, and I do wonder, how do you tiptoe the line between, I guess, like wishful thinking on one hand, but then on the other of just like leaning into the uncertainty where there's been bad classes in the past and then they surprise us, right? Like they're like, I can't think of off the top of my head. Like even JSN was in the 20s. We loved JSN, but you know what I mean? Like that wasn't, he wasn't seen as the next Neighbors or anybody in terms of where he's valued at now. What do you think of that, like wishful thinking that like, oh, like maybe there will be a Bucky Irving in this class or a Kyron Williams? Are you holding your breath, or is it kind of like, I don't know, if that happens, it happens, but also like I'm not going to overrate picks that could hit.
Yeah, I mean, almost certainly there's going to be some guys with more red flags or weaker profiles that hit. I mean, we can do, some things from an analysis perspective to try and identify who that's more likely or less likely to be, and we can look for ceiling indicators in the profiles. But at the end of the day, it is just a matter of fact that everything is probabilistic. And so there's going to be a number of prospects that if you had to rate their chances of being, a hit, might be more like 1 in 10. But yeah, if you get 20 of those in a class, you'd expect 2 of them to hit. The hard part is just you don't want to overvalue the whole suite of picks, because how confident can you be in your ability to pick out the one player from the 3rd round or the 4th round that's going to be the guy? So all I would say is on aggregate, it looks to be a much worse class. That doesn't mean there won't be hits. It's just if you average out, like I have the 1-7 through the 1-12 is all in one tier. I would say that on aggregate, this year's 1-7 through 1-12 is going to be probably much worse than an average class's 1-7 through 1-12. Does that mean there won't be 1 or 2 of those guys who become major hits? I would expect that to happen. I just can't really guarantee you who that's going to be. And I think there's probably going to be a few major busts alongside that as well.
Before we get into this first tier, I did actually want to circle back to a point that you made earlier of like, it's interesting you say home league, because when you say home league and Dynasty, I'm like, it's such a niche thing. But I will tell you, I'm seeing more and more like my home league buddies. Like it's not a home league with me in Dynasty, but these guys who sometimes feels like I'm pulling teeth to get them to set lineups and make waiver ads. I'm shocked when they tell me they're on like a sleeper Dynasty league with like guys in their frat. And then they come to me whenever I see them in the spring or whatever, like, oh, what do I do in my rookie draft here? And you'd be shocked. I hate to put my buddy on blast, but I think he maybe, I hate to say this, I think he traded from the 101 to the 102. And all he got to close the gap was like Darnell Mooney, because he's a Giants fan.
Oh,
and that's all it
so
took.
Tough.
I wish he checked in with me, but there are leagues like that happening. And like you're saying, like if you're in a home league, just the name that like the 101 and the 102, like that shouldn't really be a big gap. If you're in a home league, that reasoning is sound.
Yeah, like if you're in that kind of league and you have the 102 or the 103, I would definitely be throwing out, the 102 plus. I mean, I don't know. Let's say you have the 102 and the 202, and you could be like, oh, 102, 202, and you throw in something and see. I mean, if someone's really plugged in, they'll laugh in your face. But if they're not, I mean, that's probably a reasonable offer in most years. So, yeah, definitely worth trying.
Yeah. So let's talk about the 101, because I think that is where we obviously would start. I'll have that as its own tier as the 101. It's Jeremiah Love. It's interesting because I think in sharper leagues, it's maybe not so much, but there is like such a stench on this class that I think Jeremiah Love almost gets caught up in the stench when I think he's like a really strong running back prospect, obviously. He's really good. The 101 should have no discount. Like the 101 should
Correct.
Be what it is. But I do wonder if just the stench of this class, like there's such an overwhelming sentiment of like, get these 2026 picks off of your teams. And I think that it can sometimes blur the line with the 101. So I'm curious. I feel like it's pretty simple if you're a contender. Like maybe you just take Jeremiah Love and take his points. But how are you handling leagues where you have the 101?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I'm just clicking Jeremiah Love. I'm not very interested in trading down in this class. The trades might maybe interest me is I still prefer Genty by a touch. If someone prefers Love and maybe would give me anything else to move Genty into my 101, I'm open to that. If I have a particularly poor team, and I have a natural 101 because my team just stinks, I don't have any value on my team, then yeah, I probably am not super pumped about putting 2+ firsts of relatively illiquid value into a running back. And so maybe at that point, I put the pick on the block. I try to use the value of Love to get an extra 1 and 27 maybe, and add something else on top. That's where I'm maybe looking into it, but I would be surprised if I ever get the level of offer I need in this class specifically to move back. I would need legitimately like 102 and 103 and another pick plus to move back from Love in this class. And I don't know how many times you're going to see someone even have those picks. So for the most part, like, Love is more valuable. If someone only has their own picks, Love is more valuable than like the 102, the 202, the 302, and the 402 combined for me pretty easily. So not trading back.
Yeah, you make a good point where, like, there is a part of if the rookie draft is no longer desirable, then you sort of are starting to lose things of value to trade away for Jordan Love, or Jeremiah Love. Like, there's only so many 27 firsts that'll be on somebody's team, and if they are stacking a bunch and they're ready to get Jeremiah Love, they're probably a contender. So like a late 2027 first. I'm curious on the topic of the 2027 firsts. So I think that's like this weird overshadowing part of this is that they're coming at a premium. I guess in your leagues, how like untouchable or acquirable have they been? Because I honestly, I feel like it's been a while since I've seen a 27 first actually moved. Like, it feels like we're now in a spot where they're all just getting hoarded.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. I mean, again, I think this is the worst time of year to trade for the 27 ones because all you're getting is all of the smoke about how valuable the 27 class is. And because it's not a big love fest, I just made a bunch of hearts by changing the brim on my cap. That's a fun streamer. So Jeremiah Love, there we go.
Perfect.
Because there isn't that much excitement about 26, you can't even really use, at least in most cases, you can't even use the current draft fever to extract those 27 ones. So I think hopefully, you got it ahead. You got maybe some 27 ones on some rebuilding teams last year in season when it was a ways away. And then I think you'll be able to pry some once we get in season, and especially the later ones. Contenders are going to be looking at their teams, and they're not going to be as worried about the draft class when it's week 9 and they need a running back because their guy just got hurt. That's when you're going to be able to stack a bunch of those later 27 ones. If you wanted to get a discount on the pick that could become Jeremiah Smith, it probably is already over. That was probably something you had to do multiple years out to be able to get some crappy teams 27-1 multiple years in advance. At this point, if you don't have some of those in your portfolio, you probably need to tank for your own Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, it's anybody who has like a chance of Jeremiah Smith isn't moving off that pick. Now, going to our second tier, I'll just go by. This is keep trade cut ADP. So this is like more like where the market tiers are, is what I would say. We have Mendoza, which I don't think Mendoza is actually going to stay as the 102, but we have Mendoza, Tate.
He hasn't been
Lemon.
there in any of my pre-draft rookie drafts, but I that's probably some selection bias to that. The quarterbacks usually go higher in aggregate ADP than they go in my sample of leagues historically.
Yeah, that's the tricky part. Is I do wonder, like, is your home league just going to see first overall pick quarterback, take him 102? I would assume so, but it does make it interesting. If you are, I feel like probably the least desirable spot to be would be the 102. I assume you would agree. Like, if you're at the 102, what's kind of your mindset between now and like Thursday?
I mean, I think that maybe even the worst spot might be the 103, because I think what you hope for if you're currently in the 102 is, maybe you've already tried to trade back and say it hasn't worked. I think at this point you're just hoping that one of the 3 receivers gets like a money landing spot and really separates from the other 2, because it is to me a cluster of 3. Like, I currently have Tyson wide receiver 1, but I've been upfront the whole offseason about I'm willing to reshuffle these in any order based on draft capital landing spot. Like I do not have him written in ink as my post draft wide receiver 1. So like one of these guys goes to Washington at 7, for instance, or Kansas City at 9. I think that guy just becomes the very easy 102. And that's probably what you're hoping for. And then you either make the pick if you want, or you're going to be able to get that surplus value to trade down. So that's why, even though I have these 3 receivers in the same tier in my rankings, in my overall Dynasty rankings right now, which you can find on Thinking About Thinking, I have the picks in my tiers. Then I have 102 a tier ahead of the 103, 104, and the 105. And that's solely because I'm anticipating one of these players probably getting a more favorable draft day outcome than the others, just from, the perspective of the roll of the dice. So I think that's the main thing you're hoping for at the 102. If all these guys get mid landing spots, then you might just be hooped, and you're just hoping someone in your league is like a fan of the team that drafts this guy, and you're able to extract some value out of them that way.
I like that call. Where I'll be honest, I was looking at the Jordan Reed 7-round mock draft this morning. Or I guess you'd be stoked about Mekhi Lemon to the Rams. I guess you could sell yourself on that at 102. I'm curious. Let's say, because I think right now there's not a ton to move off these picks until the draft on Thursday. So we'll assume the draft happens, and then you're deciding, are you holding, selling? I'm curious if you're in this range. What is, you're hoping for the good landing spots. Let's say you get a good landing spot at 102. What are you doing if you're like a rebuilder there?
Rebuilder, I think you're not trading him for veterans at that point, right? So
Yeah.
Your options really are you're either trying to trade back, out, or pick. And so I think an ideal offer, like, so I have all 3 of these receivers in a vacuum rated at 1.25 on my base first valuation. So that's kind of like a mid first and a second, if you want to think about it that way. Assuming you get the good landing spot, maybe they even get up to like a 1.5. I'd be trying to target ideally like a pick from around the turn in this draft plus a 27-1 would be my starting point of what I would be trying to get if I'm just trading back. And as a rebuilder, that's probably the only kind of offer that's really interesting me, right? Like if I'm either trying to, or if you don't get such a clear separating landing spot and these 3 receivers are all kind of in the same range, like I wouldn't need much, right? Like if someone has a preference right now, I was in a pre-draft rookie draft and it was still the same tight cluster post-draft, like, yeah, if I had the 103 today and someone offered me, the 105, Mendoza's off the board at 102, so I just go 2 spots back and I get the 3rd receiver off of the board in first, like I do that for a 27-second, no problem.
Yeah, just to get something. I will say, like, periodically, I do just want to like pull up the trade database on Fantasy Calc. I'm curious. This is honestly a side tangent because I know how we both feel about Luther Burden. I see here the 102 for Luther Burden straight up. Which side are you on? And I guess where does your team have to be for that to make sense to move off a rookie pick and instead get Luther Burden?
I think you need to have a use for the production this year, to me, because Luther Burden has more, I think, immediate downside risk as value than the rookies do. There's a higher expectation on what he needs to produce. So he's going to need to be a meaningful fantasy contributor to hold or improve his value. So if I'm a rebuilding dynasty manager, like I don't think that's worth the risk to me, just to make a bet on Luther Burden and give up the 102 or 103 or 104 for that. I'd just pick one of the rookies. But yeah, I think in a vacuum, I have the 102 ranked higher than Burden for now, which is, again, baking in some of that landing spot ambiguity. But I have Burden ranked higher than each of these 3 receivers in a vacuum. To me, he would be, if he were just in this class as a prospect and we didn't know anything about his rookie year yet, like I think he'd be in this group. I might have him as like the 105, like behind these 3 and Mendoza. And that's really even accounting for the fact that he was a round 2 pick last year. I think if he was in this draft where it's a lot weaker across the board, I bet he goes in round 1. So I think that you could make an argument that he's as strong of a prospect as any of these guys. And to me, his rookie year should be viewed very positively. I think, everyone's going to have a different perspective on his rookie year because the per route stuff is so strong, but the limited play volume is a legitimate concern that depending on how you weight these different things, you might come to different conclusions. But overall, I'm pretty bullish on Burden. I think from like a pure ceiling perspective, I've probably seen more of that from him than these three. So I think he's in the mix with these guys for sure. And if you can use the points, I might do it.
Yeah, I like that call, and I think you make a good point too. Of even if you have Burden in the same tier as these rookie wide receivers, and let's say if you're player 1 in Dynasty and you have Mekhi Lemon as your wide receiver 17 and Luther Burden as your wide receiver 16, if you are a rebuilder, you get more leeway, like you said, with the rookie pick. So, and I think that's something that you sort of alluded to with not having strict buys and sells, is that, like, in theory, Burden could be a buy, and in theory, these picks could be a sell. But if you are a rebuilding team, you benefit more from the rookie upside. And honestly, kind of like the rookie floor, some of these guys get like a ton of leeway. I mean, like Matthew Golden still has believers out there and stuff. Not that his value has stayed the same, but you get what I'm saying. So I will say for contenders, we want to put hold or buy, or hold or sell, I mean, for contenders.
On these picks? If
Yeah.
you're a contender, I mean, it's so hard to say in a vacuum because it really depends on what you're getting. But I'm probably on the sell path for contenders if you can. I just make sure you're actually getting something commensurate. But I'm certainly trying to shop around these picks if I can on contenders.
Let me throw a couple. This is entirely unfair, but I'm gonna throw out a couple. If you're a contender, 102 for George Pickens.
No, throw these out. This is fun. I'm happy to do this all day. I think today I'm sticking with the 102, and I would take Pickens ahead of the rest. But without that Chiefs or Commanders landing spot, I'd probably take Pickens.
And then I'll give you one more, because I think this is something that will be on the table for a lot of people, is adding one of these picks to a veteran and then tiering up. Would you do Brian Thomas in the 102 for CeeDee Lamb?
No, I'd keep Lamb, I think.
Well, I mean, if let's say you're holding the 102, you have Brian Thomas.
Then yes, I would.
You would upgrade to CeeDee Lamb for that price, like essentially adding the 102 to your Brian Thomas.
I would do that deal if I have a contender. I'm doing that deal. Yeah.
All right, I like that call as well. So I'll put that as a sell. I think the further you get here, right, to like 105, it becomes a little bit tougher, and you're probably getting like the 105 is almost a appealing pick, even though people are
I agree.
Kind of out.
Yeah, I think that the two picks that are the most similar to what you'd get in a normal rookie draft are the 101 and the 105. You're getting whoever's last of the tier and a pretty quality player at the 105. I'm in on that, especially if I'm in a league where Mendoza's coming off the board earlier. So I think the 105 is a nice pocket to pick from. I agree.
All right, let's move on. We'll call this the mid-first tier. This is how Keep Trade Cut has it. We have Kenyon Sadiq, wherever he may be in my list here. And then you're going to have Concepcion. And then, like, I don't know. I suppose you could put Omar Cooper, but I'm going to stay away from that for now. I'm just going to call this the mid-first with Sadiq and Concepcion. Yeah, no. If he becomes a Jet,
he already is a Jet.
No.
It's happening
because it's gonna be Denzel Boston. It's gonna be Denzel Boston, and I'm gonna cry about it. God, there's 16, just a billion.
Or is
things.
that your 33 is taking Denzel Boston?
It's gonna be, if they take Boston, it could very well be 16. It's just I'm just hoping
I'd rather take Boston at 33 than Cooper at 16. If those are
absolutely. But yeah. I mean the Jets just bummed me out, but I'm glad. I'll tip my cap to the Colts. Thank you for that pick, my boy.
Yes.
But here we sit.
I hope you spent it on Omar Cooper at least. That would make me
feel bad. No, never that. We're here at the 106 to 107. We have Sadiq. We have Concepcion. I'd assume you're not thrilled about sitting at the 106, kind of regardless of situation. But like maybe you get. I'm trying to you got to really think through what you could sell yourself on here.
I don't mind being at the 106. I'm more opposed to the 107. I really like Concepcion, so I'm pretty content at the 106 to pick him. Once they get to the 107 is when I go into panic mode because I would reckon that I'm higher than your average drafter on Concepcion, so I feel like I'm getting a little bit of value there. And you also always have the chance, like if you're sitting at the 106, especially before you get on the clock, like you never know what's going to happen in front of you. You
Oh
could
yeah.
have someone who, maybe it's the 105 gets to them and they already have 3 quarterbacks, and so they're not even going to bother with Mendoza. Or you have there's some people who really like Sadiq and might take him in the top 5. Or maybe we fast forward and Jadarian Price has gone 32 to Seattle, and so he's steaming up the boards. Like there's more outs at the 106. The 107, you're probably not getting anyone in that top 5 almost every time. And then I'm not out on Sadiq, but I view him a tier below Concepcion. So that's when you're starting to get into players that I think other people are going to be higher on than I am. So I'm kind of like a hold on the 106, but then when we get to the 107 and beyond, that's where I'm probably 107, 108 are major priority sell picks for me in this class, because I think that they're not only are they poor compared to a relative pick, but unlike the receivers at 2, 3, 4, where I think I view them about similarly to most people, I think there's going to be people in my league who like Sadiq, Cooper, Price, Boston, Washington, etc., all more than I do. So I think those are probably picks I want to be moving.
I think I might call an audible and move. I might move the 106 to the early first tier, really only for the idea that maybe someone gets an awesome landing spot and gets bumped up here, or just the fact, like you said, like anything can happen in a league. You're still at least looking at the 106 through rose-colored glasses right now. You know what I mean? Like right now, you can sell yourself on a landing spot or something good. And we're kind of bouncing around everywhere here, but I want to pick your brain on this. The Jordan Reed mock had Concepcion to the Steelers. I'm curious, like, how much could a landing spot sort of bum you out on Concepcion at like, because I can't imagine
There's
you're stoked to take him there.
No, that's lame. I don't like that. I don't hate it. I mean, it would be bad for year 1, but Metcalf and Pittman are pretty old. Like you can get him into being a every down wide receiver there pretty soon. And who knows? Maybe they get a quarterback. So it's not like the worst in the world. The one that I've seen mocked a decent amount that terrifies me is the Panthers. I want nothing to do with that. That I hate. You have Bryce Young, who I think is like just good enough to never get benched in the short to medium term future. But he's a brutal fantasy quarterback because he's a really low drop back conversion rate guy, like high rate of sacks and scrambles. And he's not good, so they're going to have this really high rush rate as long as he's the quarterback. And I mean, I think McMillan is a complete stud, and he was able to keep him out of being a top 24 receiver last year. You want a new rookie to come in and have McMillan on top of him, and then you're this wide receiver 2. I mean, I'm like a huge Jalen Coker guy, and I think he's also target competition, but I can't even really get that excited about Coker's price right now, like in the pre-draft best ball stuff, because I'm like, I barely even want McMillan in this shitty offense. Like, I really don't want their wide receiver 2. So that one scares the shit out of me. The Jets scares the shit out of me. No offense. So, like, there's some tough ones. And then even, like, Baltimore is a team that's been heavily rumored for a receiver, and some people online seem to be more excited about that than I am. I'm not very interested in that. I love Lamar Jackson, but I wouldn't put him anywhere close to my wish list for quarterbacks for a receiver. Like, again, high run rate, high scramble rate. Like, it's not that conducive, and you have Zay Flowers on top of you. So, yeah, the landing spots are tough. There's some landmines where the 106 could look frustrating.
Yeah, so like for me, I put the 106 right on the edge because a tough landing spot could be pretty brutal. But we'll call it the 107, 108 here. You said you're pretty firmly sell. Are you selling? I'm gonna put contender on sell. As a rebuilding team, are you even trying to get out of there? Again, it's just so.
Yeah,
Where are you at on a really 2028 first? If somebody gave you their 28
deal.
for a 27,
deal,
or for the 107,
deal. Unless it's like a stud team that I have like a lot of reason to believe is going to be late. Like it's like some dynasty that's just first in value by a mile. But of a neutral team, give me the 28 for sure, because This is where I'm already into the early second tier in my rankings at the 107. So I'm into guys that I think in a normal class would be 2-1, 2-2, 2-3 caliber players. So I would snap accept a 28-1. I think that's pretty accomplishable. I would love to just move back in the tier because I think it's a lot of very high variance prospects. So if I could move from the 107, 108 into the 112, 2-1, I think I'm getting the same caliber of bet. And maybe I add a 27 second for my troubles. That I'm really into as a trade. So yeah, I think even, maybe you're not looking at trading it straight across for a producer if you're a rebuilder, but I think there's a lot of trades that I would still have interest in doing from the 107 on a rebuilder that are pretty accomplishable. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you're just going to have to accept it and make the pick, but I'm going to try to avoid doing that as much as I can.
It sounds like a cop out because I think it's going to be a lot easier said than done in terms of tiering up, right? We talk about the one we just said with CeeDee Lamb, where you add to the 102 to get up to CeeDee Lamb. Like I see this trade here on Fantasy Calc, Laporta in the 107 to go get Loveland. I'd assume you'd love that.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're a contender, here are some more like icky ones though. Contender 107 straight up for Josh Jacobs.
Ooh, yeah, I'm taking Jacobs there on a contender. I am.
So I assume ETN as well.
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
Basil Tootin.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Look at this. I mean, I don't know. This is remarkable. So my rankings right now, I have Jacobs at 75, ETN at 76. I have the 107 at 78, and I have Tootin at 80. So you're right all in this tier. So I'll probably just barely keep the 107 over Tootin.
What about? Let me give you one more here. Is Waddle interesting there?
Oh, smash. Easy
smash for Waddle.
I have Waddle way higher. Yeah, I got Waddle all the way up. I have Waddle ahead of the 106 as well. I have him in between the 105 and the 106.
I think it's going to come down to it's a tricky draft. It's going to come down to if you are looking to sell as a contender. It's like we pretty much what we've been touching on. Like the 107 in a normal year, if you sell that for Jalen Waddle, like it's just it just shouldn't there is some sticker shock there of like this is the 107, but look, if you didn't move off of it, I mean, it's not like everyone was saying panic sell back in, September or whatever. It's just kind of how things shook out. The 107 is now on your team, and the value is what it is. And at a certain point, you might just have to, make amends with that.
I mean, my first pre-draft rookie draft of the year, I had the 108, and I tried desperately to trade up. Someone took Sadiq, I think, at like the 103, so then it made it even less of a trade up was necessary. I was trying to move up to the 105. I was trying to move up to the 106. I was even trying to move up to the 107. Tyson ends up going at 6. Concepcion goes at 7. I couldn't get any of those trade ups. I was offering pretty decent packages, but I get stuck at the 8, and I'm like, geez, like what am I going to do here? And like I tried to trade back, and no one was biting. This is like a very plugged in league. I just had to sit there and take Omar Cooper. Didn't feel good.
Yeah, and then it's just what has to happen now.
But who knows, right? Maybe he turns into a stud, and then I'm really happy I stuck and picked. It's totally possible.
Exactly. Nobody knows, but we'll put this late first here on stream. We'll put Jadarian Price. We'll put Denzel Boston. We'll put Ty Simpson. Who while I'm filling this out, I'm curious. I know it's actually interesting. I know that you're not very interested on Ty Simpson. Not that really anyone is. He doesn't really scramble, which I think me and you were both pretty aligned on Milroe and Shuck last year. That a rushing quarterback, like I'm in. He goes second pick of the second round to the Cardinals in Jordan Reed's mock. That do anything for you in the late first?
That's gonna happen, and I mean it does. Like I mean, maybe the Cardinals smoke is completely fake, but I buy it. I mean, all they've done is bring back Jakobi, who's not reporting to camp, and bring in Minshew. So I buy that there's interest from the Cardinals either in that early second slot or they trade just up into the first. That's totally plausible to me. So I don't personally see it with Simpson. Like the Alabama offense cratered in passing efficiency when they moved from Jalen Milroe, who is a round 3 guy with elite athleticism and rushing ability, to Ty Simpson, who's a pocket passer, who like again was just an infinitely less efficient pocket passer than Jalen Milroe, who has rushing ability. So I don't understand why Simpson is getting the love he's getting. But I mean, if the NFL is going to draft you at the end of round 1 or early round 2, you're probably going to get starts. Where I always will argue with people is I often have seen in the past, like people will be like, if Simpson goes round 1, like then he's got the highest floor of anyone in this tier. And I'm like, historically that could not be less true. The floor on these late 1 guys is terrible. Like you go back from Tebow, Manziel, Paxton Lynch, Teddy Bridgewater, Kenny Pickett. The floor is awful. What you're drafting these guys for is the ceiling, and that's where you throw in like your Lamar Jackson, Jordan Love. You extend it even out to the early 2. You get like Andy Dalton, Derek Carr, Jalen Hurts. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to confuse Simpson with Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts, but like it's at least in the range of outcomes he could be Jordan Love, Derek Carr, Andy Dalton. And if you get yourself a 10-year starter from a late first round pick, I'm in on that, right? I mean, my argument against Mendoza 102 is he's probably not going to be a high-end QB1 based on the lack of rushing production. You're just absorbing inherent risk with a volatile position that he might just be bad. And if he's good, what are you winning? Are you winning Jared Goff? Because I can get actual Jared Goff a lot cheaper, right? But when we get into this range where the value is way lower, yeah, like I didn't think Tyler Shuck was any good as a prospect, like from a real life football lens, but it looks like he might be. So huge win wherever you got him. I think in a bad class, Simpson with a path to year 1 starts, totally reasonable first round pick.
Now, what I'll say here is I'm dying to get one of these to turn into a buy. It seems like you said earlier, like trading back to the late first. What is let's say you're trading back from the 102. What to you is like the sweet spot of a spot that you actually don't mind moving back to, or you kind of maybe now we're almost like coming all the way back around the horseshoe of like this class sucks so much, but the 111's price tag is okay by me or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really never quite evens out for me after the 105. Like I give all of these picks my like in a vacuum valuation, and we never really do catch up. But the closest we come is in and around the 111, 112 range, because I do think from 107, arguably even all the way out to 202, are almost the exact same value for me. So yeah, if I'm trading back from the 102, and I can't get the 104 or the 105, I'm looking at, okay, I'd like a 27 or 28 one, and can I get a pick around the turn? Can I get the 112, the 201, the 202? That's where I'm targeting. So I think, in a vacuum, worse than a usual class, but like we get into that range of the very late first and the very early second, I think you're getting a pretty reasonable player there who's pretty similar to the player you're betting on at the 1718. My guess though is that when we actually get the draft results, my guess is that there's more of a spread, because like right now all these guys are just what they are as prospects, but when Jonah Coleman and Jadarian Price and Mike Washington all get their landing spots, like I bet it's going to be harder to put those guys in the same tier, right? We're going to see one of them go to Seattle, and then that's clearly the best of the group, and someone else is going to be a complete backup, and it's going to make it a little bit more gradual. But right now, to me, that's a pretty flat tier, and I want to be picking at the end of it.
I like that call. I will say the Jordan Reed mock was like almost a doomsday scenario where, we did get Mike Washington to Seattle 64th overall. So obviously everyone would be stoked about that. But then you got 62nd overall. You got Jadarian Price to the Broncos, which we would be. I mean, that would just be.
That's so horrible for everyone involved.
Yeah, it would just be so bad. But it's so funny because I could see Sean Payton doing it.
Totally could see Sean Payton doing it. And I mean, I think it would be so miserable. I mean, first of all, I think Jadarian Price would just straight up not play. Would be my projection. Like I think it would just be Dobbins is going to be our starter in 2026, and Price will take over in 27, and Harvey will be a specialist in passing situations. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what. Oh, and also Tyler Badee is still playing on 3rd and 10.
Yeah, somebody would be out there on 3rd and 10.
Somebody would be out there at 3rd and 10, and it wouldn't be Harvey, Dobbins, or Price.
No,
like it would,
no.
Yeah.
It would just, and then on top of that, you of course get everyone's, the dynasty darling, which I'm starting to get a little bit worried about in terms of the NFL not being as stoked about Jonah. It's obvious that they're not as stoked as we are about Jonah Coleman, but Jonah Coleman then goes 4th round to the Lions, which isn't bad.
That's fine. I don't hate
fun,
that.
But it's
I don't
not.
hate that.
It's not a late first, but I think you'd be obviously like an early second here. You'd be fine spending that.
I love Coleman, and I just pray that he can land. I don't even actually want him to go to like the nuts spot, because then I don't even get to be that in on him, right? Like, like if he went like round 3 to Seattle and they don't draft anyone else, then he would just become like the 107, and that's not fun anymore. Like, that's what happened to me with Harvey last year.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm glad I didn't take that much of him, I guess, because he was kind of shitty. But like, he was like my sleeper guy in the pre-draft process when he was projected to be a round 4 pick. But then he goes round 2 to this incredible landing spot. He becomes like a guy that goes at the 1-9, 1-10. I'm like, well, like, I guess that's nice for my 2 pre-draft shares. They just increased in value. But I'm not even going to be that in on him anymore compared to the market, because he's risen so much. So I want Coleman to go somewhere not that sexy, but somewhere that I can get.
Well,
really
Broncos
excited.
62nd.
Nope. Can you go like what about round 3 to the Vikings? Like, that would be, I think.
No, that'd
like
be
one
awesome.
Where, like, really fun, but like maybe not quite as the nuts
not as
that
obvious.
everyone's going to get that'd be fun for me.
So I'll put. Look, it's gonna say buy in all caps, but we'll say it's more like lowercase buy. We're not dying to scoop up the 201 or the 202, but I think if you are looking to trade back, if you can get to the second, and then like you were saying, like, can you get to the 201 or the 112 and then like net a future one? If not a 27, a 28 works well. Would you say, does it really matter between rebuilder? I would assume that you're actually more inclined to buy the early second as a rebuilder. Where would you be as like a contender? You're sitting at the 201, or maybe you don't even have a pick in this class, and like you kind of just want to get in on the fun. Maybe you have somebody who's like a sell in your mind, and you wouldn't mind just. I think I've seen. I'm trying to think of like who you would be looking to sell in Dynasty, but like a guy you just kind of want to get off your roster, and to close the gap, you want an asset. Maybe like the 201 or something. How are you looking at it?
I mean, I think it's a decent range to buy into, because I think you're not paying that high of a price and you're getting a decent amount of upside. I mean, I just did a deal. I was like a very long, complicated deal, but at the end of it, I had the option of either getting the 203 or a 27 second from the best team in the league. So probably going to be the 29 or the 210, 211, 212. And I was like, you know what? I'll just take the 203, because maybe one of these guys falls to me, or someone gets a fun landing spot, and at least I have the chance to run the value exercise this year. So I think if you want to make a pick, have some fun, low stakes, high reward, I agree that the 112 to 203 range is like a pretty good place to do it.
Where are you at, like, because I want to ask you about this in a vacuum first, and then I kind of want to pin down if you were a contender here. DK Metcalf for the 201.
If I was a contender, I would take, and it's such a funny one that you just mentioned, because I literally had basically the 201. It was the 113 in a 14-team league, and I had a contender, and I just traded that for DK Metcalf yesterday. Because
that's what I was curious about, because I know
you're not even in that league. You just savanted that right out of
it.
So.
I have I have a bit of a spidey sense up here. I guess what I'm curious about is, because we do kind of talk about this, like, you always want to be in the contending window. You never want to, right? You don't want to be the team where, like, yes, your team can be awesome, but three years out, you don't have your first round pick until 2030. Where are you at on, like, if you have a Metcalf, like, being like, maybe I should get a pick here and like inject some youth into this team? Like, at what point does it make sense to be like sell a vet for like a low stakes rookie pick? Wow, 201. I didn't think that the value. I mean, this is a separate tangent, but Jonathan Brooks for the 201. I didn't know we were there yet on Jonathan Brooks. So two different things here. How are you kind of like always sort of trying to expand your window, but then also thinking through like Metcalf helps me more than the 201, but maybe, my wide receiver room has like Devontae Adams at like the wide receiver 3 spot, and I want some youth or upside.
Yeah, I think it's a spot where that's like super roster dependent. I mean, on my rankings, I have Metcalf behind the 201 and ahead of the 202, which is basically at this point me just throwing my hands in the air and shrugging. On that specific team, like I said, it's a 14-team league. So I really value the floor of production more than I would in a 12-team league, right? Like if I just take if I take the 113, which is the same as the 201 essentially, but I completely whiff and that guy's a 0, like that's really detrimental in a 14-team league when you don't have that many chances. Whereas at least I'm like, I know I'm getting a few years of production out of DK Metcalf as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, and that's going to be big for me because you're always kind of 2 injuries away from starting Jalen Naylor, when you're in a 14-team league. So in that scenario, deep league, I'm really wary of busts on rookie picks, and I'm pretty willing to take the veterans. But if it's a shallower league or you just have a loaded roster, ton of depth, then yeah, I mean, if DK Metcalf isn't providing a meaningful role on your team, then take the swing because you'd much rather have the pure upside of the rookie value bet, and you can ride that more volatile wave of market projection. So I think that's an area where it's very team dependent. If your team is overloaded on older producers, take the rookie. If you're in that deeper league, you really do need a floor of production. That's when you're probably looking at guys like DK Metcalf, David Montgomery, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift would be a guy I'd throw in here. Like guys that are not needle movers, but solid starters in those deeper leagues.
I like that call too of like, if they're not hitting your lineup and you're looking to get younger and you can take on the risk, why not? Especially because I do think there is a sentiment with this class, right? As we're talking about the 201 and whatever, of just like, especially in this range, which I find shocking, of just like, oh, just sell it for whatever. Like I'm looking through here, like there's like a 201 for like there's like so much panic with this class. Like 201 for Rico Dowdle. I'm seeing here
201.
Yeah, like I almost think people are like almost like rushing to get these picks off their hands at this point. It's like, look, the value is already gone. Like there's no need to sell for Rico Dowdle. I'm curious. The Jonathan Brooks conversation is a whole other one, but there's no like the 201 that can't. It has to be like once we have to get into like the Nick Singleton, which I love Singleton, but like we got to get to that range before we're selling rookie picks for John Brooks.
Yeah, I have the 201 ranked a full tier ahead of Brooks. I have Brooks right now in between the 205 and the 206, but I have Brooks ahead of Rico Dowdle. So
I don't hate it.
I'm Brooks pilled a little bit.
Look, I'm not anti Brooks pilled, but
Not we gotta.
It's gonna. I know it's already gonna get outrageous in the summer where we're gonna see like clips of him and it's gonna be fun.
Look, man. This is what I was arguing with on ADP chasing because Pat was not as into his price, and I was like, if you don't want to click him at 150 in the big board, you're really not going to want to click him at 95 in August after we get video of him running. So I'm like, you might as well fill up now because
it's only going to go up.
This is going one way, unless the Panthers like draft a running back, but I don't think that they will.
And I'll take your temperature on this one. Travis Hunter, the 201.
I mean, this is not even as much team dependent as it just is like risk tolerance dependent. Like, I mean, they're a similar archetype of asset in the sense that you have a really wide range of outcomes on both. But Hunter is just purely like, are you okay truly taking a 0 and just holding and then just seeing what happens? Like, if you're fine with that psychologically, I like his upside more. But I think I have them very close. So yeah, I have the 201 ranked just higher than Hunter. I have Hunter higher than the 202. Again, it's kind of throwing my hands in the air here. I'll say the 201, but I think on a stacked roster, like if you're just caring about apex outcomes, like I'm probably more interested in Hunter. I still think his ceiling is a lot higher.
Yeah, and I think drafting for positional needs, not the smartest thing in the world, but if you're like a rebuilding or if you're a rebuilding team just looking to swing on maximum upside and you don't want to take if you're a rebuild, you're not stoked to take Mike Washington. I don't hate the idea, like especially once Concepcion's off the board and like the receivers kind of suck. I don't hate just getting into the hunter business. But I did want to, because we kind of like talked about how this is more desirable, obviously, than the 109 through 112. So just to backtrack, if you're sitting at like the 109, because I guess it's tough for like, because I assume you'd still sort of bucket the 110 into this area and like almost like remove the 203. So I think I'd actually do like this.
That's more or less. I mean, really, how my tiers go is that I have Concepcion in the mid first on his own, and then I have kind
Mm-hmm.
of the rest of these guys down in the late first. But I think that's kind of getting into what you have on your sheet, which is I'm less interested in the top of this tier. I'm more interested in the bottom of this tier. So I think that's pretty solid how you
All
have
right,
it
I
laid
think this
out.
looks good. And then we'll talk about I guess like the early second. But I think this will be very landing spot dependent of
Yeah.
who actually gets the capital. But like for now, we'll just do some like I don't know. We'll do some fillers of like Surratt.
Yeah,
We'll do some
that
filler.
203 right now is a start of a new tier for me, and that's where I have Surratt as like a placeholder kind of because he's the profile in a vacuum that I like the most. But um, yeah, extremely able to get jumped if we can get a fun landing spot for a Nick Singleton or an Emmett Johnson or I mean any of these wide receivers. Honestly, like if they land in a clear runway, even some of the tight ends I start getting interested in around here. Like if Max Clare sees his name in round 2 on a nice depth chart, like sure, why he could be my 203 in this class. If Garrett Nussmeier goes in round 2 to a team where it looks like he has a plausible chance to start in 2026 or 2027, like he gets into this tier. So there's a lot of variability here.
Reed had. 'Cause I do want to pick your brain on the Nussmeyer thing. I have such a hard time. He goes third round to the Rams, which I think is interesting on the surface,
Fun.
but I just fear with these guys. Like once you get to the third round and stuff, it's like are they just like Kyle Trask or like Hendon Hooker,
Probably.
where like these guys just get wasted away? And at what point
Probably.
is that even like interesting? You know?
It gets interesting pretty fast in this class for me.
Yeah,
Um, like, yeah, I mean, I have
for
all
sure.
these guys. Like, it's almost impossible to grade these guys without knowing the landing spot in the draft capital because, like, what am I supposed to do? All these quarterbacks that played in the real conferences look horrible statistically. And it's like Cole Payton looks fun, but he played in the FCS, so whatever. Um, to me, it's just if you get somewhat reasonable draft capital, and I can talk myself into starts this year or next year for Cole Payton or Taylon Green because they run. Like I'm gonna be overexposed if I can get them in round 3, round 4. Because I'm probably just letting a pick on fire. But what else am I supposed to do? Like I'm gonna draft like I don't know Skylar Bell. Like
Hmm.
what's that
Yeah.
supposed to do for me? Like
Yeah.
it's fine. I'll take my Taylon Greens and my Cole Paytons, and I'll bet on the 1 in 30 chance that they become a starter, and I'm getting like a rushing threat, dual threat for even a year, right? I mean, even if they have to languish for a while, there's rosters where I took Malik Willis, forgot about him, and now I'm like, yo, I have Malik Willis on this roster. Like, what a fun
There's a
surprise
lot of
underneath
that
the Christmas
happening.
tree. So, like, wouldn't you rather that than have drafted some total bum? So yeah, it gets to the quarterback tier pretty quick. I mean, a Nussmeier is less intriguing because he doesn't really have the rushing profile, so he's basically just Ty Simpson with worse draft capital projection. But I mean, anytime you can get into the starting quarterback conversation, it gets interesting in Superflex Dynasty pretty quickly.
I'm gonna put I put 203 to 207 in this like early second. You have this in
Nice.
your uh rankings as late second. I'll be kind and put it as a mid second
Yeah.
tier. Because we'll
So
call
I
this
mean,
like the
I'm doing
1-2.
that in a vacuum, and it's actually so satisfying this year. It's not satisfying if you have rookie picks, but it's satisfying for me personally because I've had the same buzzards in my comment section for the last 3 years, who like I often am valuing the rookie picks like higher than I theoretically should based on like I'll be like the late first tier. Like last year, I think I had Burden ranked at like the 201, but I had him as a late first. And I've had like my 106 before as being worth like 1.5 firsts. And I always have people being like, you need to redo your system, like you're too generous, like you're. And I have to go into this long answer about how it's partially based on an average class, that my base first system is based on the pick being a year out, and so there's like a value boost when you get to play the pick right away. Anyway, I've been having this argument with people forever, and this year I get to be like, yeah, that 108 you have, that's worth a second, you loser. Now we're catching up. So it's satisfying for me, but yes, my late 2 value tier starts at the 203.
No, I love that because it makes sense. Like every draft isn't in a vacuum. Like these you can kind of get a feel for it when you look at like the startup value, and even then picks are probably undervalued there, so it's not like a great gauge if that makes sense. But I do like that idea because like the 112 in any given class isn't the same. But I am curious in this mid-second tier, because you do have it's a late second for you, but we'll call it the mid-second tier. You do have it as a tier in its own right. So what are we doing here with the 203, 204, 205? We've already kind of said that like this is where we want to be living. We want to get the hell out of here. What do we feel about like the 203, 204? Because at the end of the day, we're going to be drafting here. Like that's just what it is. These picks will be on your teams. Are you just sitting and making the picks? Are you at this point, have you thrown your hands up and said, I'm not even maneuvering? Would you snaps? Is like a 2028 second even on the menu? Like what's our thought process here? You're sitting at the 203, all your favorite players just went. How does it go?
I think I would definitely trade out for a 27 too. I think I would probably make the pick over a 28 too in this range. Once I get past this range, like into the actual late seconds of this class, is probably like late seconds is in the 2.9, the 2.10, the ones that I think I'm valuing more like an early 3. That's where I'm probably just going for any future second, even if it is in 2028, even if it's from a good team, just because I'd rather stay liquid. But yeah, I think in this range, I'm more than likely I'm just making the pick, to be honest. Like maybe this is just a laziness thing, but like I don't want to be the a-hole. I think I'm losing more social capital by being the guy who sits on the clock for 2.5 hours harassing my league mates with messages about wanting to move back a couple spots from the 206 that I'm gaining by the trade. Like I'm gonna have people putting a tariff on my assets just based on being a dick in the league chat, and I don't know if I want to invite that type of tomfoolery. So I'm probably sticking and picking. So I guess I'd put this as a hold, but this is a range at least where I would contenders in particular I'd probably still put as sell, because I think what you might do is like there are going to be some teams who look at their team during the rookie draft. I know because I've been this team, who are like, man, my team got old fast. Like, what the hell am I doing here with Aaron Jones and Cortland Sutton and Mike Evans on my team and all these old guys? And so I definitely would at least look at some not that valuable teams with some interesting vets, and if I was a contender, seeing if I could trade one of those guys to them, because what are they realistically going to get for those players? They're not going to be able to get something awesome if you have the second, third tier veteran. And so maybe they would just happily take the 205 and just be like, look, I'll take a shot. This guy was going to retire on my team anyway. And I would certainly look at that. The older veterans with my mid seconds is probably the best trade opportunity.
Let me throw some at you here. Of what do you think about the 206 or Jaylen Warren?
Warren, I think Warren
as a contender.
Yeah, definitely. I think.
What about in this one? I hate to ask you this one. What about Bill Krosky Merritt for your 206?
I mean, ultimately, we're gonna have a way clearer picture of what Bill is worth.
You're right.
Friday, once we know whether or not he's Jeremiah Love's teammate. So it's kind of impossible to answer that question today. But I'll just assume, for sake of argument, that they don't draft Jeremiah Love, because obviously, if they do, the answer is the 206 or the 306 at that point.
Yeah.
So I'll say I would go with Bill on that scenario, that they don't draft Jeremiah Love.
I assume Kittle smash accept.
Yeah, on a contender for sure.
What about 204 and 206 for DJ Moore?
I'm tempted on a contender. I think I would keep the picks, but I'm interested. I'm definitely countering that offer at the very least.
Yeah.
I'm not rejecting straight away.
I don't hate it. If you are like, this is actually a decent spot because look, you're not going to swing for the fences, but I'm seeing like 206 for Chris Godwin. I think that that's fine.
Yeah, give me Godwin on a
Yeah,
contender.
like Godwin on a contender. So there's just like a lot of these 206 and 306 for Mike Evans. I think makes sense. Like, it's not going to be the sexiest trades of all time,
Totally.
but I think that you can 206 and the 406 for Josh Downs. Say, yeah, sure. Sounds good to me. So I think that that's a decent way to play, especially because we're going to get landing spots. There'll be a little bit of hype. Everyone's going to have their, favorite pet player that goes top 50, or even like it's crazy. We talk ourselves every year into Javon Baker or DJ Giddens or whatever. There's going to be day 3 guys people will fall in love with. I'll call these as a rebuilder. I'm almost tempted to put this as a buy for maybe not a buy, but like you said on the I think there's use. I think there's utility for both sides of if you're a rebuilding team and you have an Aaron Jones. I think this is the time this is the perfect spot if you want to jump off and be like, all right, fine, whatever. Here is where the train ends.
Yeah, that's fair enough for sure.
But I think that that's going to do it for us. We don't have to. We'll call these dart throws. I'm not going to put players in here. I can't imagine the late 2, early 3. Like you said, I think that this is where, you don't want to hold up people's times. It's the 210.
You get to a certain point where, like at this point, any veteran that you would willingly trade away for a third in this class is just like not anyone who's useful. So like, if you can find someone who is willing to trade, a late 2 for like some total bomb, like good for you, I guess. But it's not something you can really rely on.
Yeah, and there becomes an ROI. Like you said, there's one thing. There's a social contract, and not hold people's time up. It's all value your own time and have some self respect out there,
True.
fellas. There's things to do. There, go to the gym. Don't grind your 212. But here's where we landed. This is what the people at the end of the video will see. The 101 tier. It's a hold in this class. Early first. We're looking to sell as contender, but as a rebuilder, you can probably stick and pick, maybe maneuver around the board, move back to the 1-2 turn area. Obviously, like the obvious thing is that because these are all within one tier, I'd say for most of these tiers, if you can go from the front to the back end of the tier and net anything, that's awesome, right? 102 to 105. 106 we actually like, but we call the rest of these sells. 106 assuming that Concepcion gets a shitty landing spot or that your league is actually smart and takes the correct top 5. And then in a class that is seen as pretty down and pretty shitty, this 1-2 turn is a fine spot to live in. People are dying to sell these picks, especially there is something about this in every class. I'd argue that I'd argue there's no bigger gap after the first 6 picks than between the 112 and the 201 for the simple fact that this has a 2 right here and is a second rounder on name value. So I think the 201 is a great spot to buy. And then in the mid-second, we have this tier. We have no clue how it's going to look between now and the NFL draft. These guys, landing spots, whatever. But we do know if you're a contender, selling these for, your Chris Godwins, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, anybody that can get into your lineup, or buying them if you're looking to get rid of those guys, I think all works out. But I think this was a good exercise for anyone out there. Like I said, just sort of wakes up now. And it is honestly like me where I'm starting to, flip over the cards and see, I actually have the 107 on this team. And we got to have some kind of game plan going into rookie drafts.
Yeah, this was fun, man. I definitely think this will be a helpful one for folks out there that are trying to piece together exactly how to value it. I always go through kind of a similar article a couple days after the draft. I do my rookie draft walkthrough where I similarly go through the tiers from a market perspective, not like from my rankings, and go through, okay, these are the spots where I want to trade up, trade down, trade out, trade in. And it's always my favorite article to write. And this was kind of like that in video form. So this was fun and hope people get a lot out of it. And excited to get the final pieces of the puzzle on the rookies in these next couple days. So we can take our already crappy rookie class and just cross another couple off when they fall to be day 3 backups.
Yep. It's going to be very fun. I do want to thank you for hopping on. I will say with Jakob, very few people that I actually read content for. I'm not a reader. I do have a bookshelf behind me. I don't really read anything. I read Ben Gretsch. I read Jakob on Substack. I think Ken Pom is free, but I enjoy reading Ken Pom stuff. But
Nice.
those are the guys that I read on Substack. So I think it's it goes to show. And Jakob is doing this full time now, so we get more writing than ever from Jakob, which I think is awesome. So let people know what you got going on. I know. I think I might even be on the ship chasing draft show for the Jets pick. So what do you have going on between now and the NFL draft? What you're writing, all that?
Yeah, so for once in my life, probably correlated with no longer working as a lawyer, but I finished all my pre-draft content by my own internal schedule, so I haven't written anything in the last couple of days. But if you want to check it out, I have deep dive articles on the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. I have my pre-draft rankings and tiers all up on Thinking About Thinking, so you can read that to prep for the NFL draft. In the immediate aftermath of the NFL draft, I'll have a ton more written content. All my post-draft rankings. I'll have the walkthrough I talked about. I'll have rankings for all different formats, market-adjusted rankings, everything you can think of. And where you can find me during the drafts, I'll be on Ship Chasing for night one. Good to hear Ron might be joining us. I'll be there for the whole time. And then I'm going to be on the Fantasy Points channel for day 2 and day 3. So I'll have plenty of time to be in front of a camera during the NFL draft.
All right, hell yeah. And, we'll see what happens. If Omar Cooper, Denzel Boston go 16th, it's going to be an ugly. I don't know if I'll be on camera if that happens. I think I will storm out and start my march. But I'll make sure I link all of I will link all of Jacob's stuff down below. One of the best weeks out there. We already got the Arbel Reese versus David Bailey stuff going on.
Nice.
You got Zachariah Branch getting arrested or whatever. Maybe we'll get a Laramie
all he was
Tunsil
doing
video.
Was blocking the sidewalk. I mean, come on.
Yeah, he was. Here's the thing.
What is this? Like he was standing at X receiver. The cop was like, "Come on, big dog, move the slot."
Yeah, no, quite literally. Look, here's what I'll say. Like, cops aren't great. But if I had NFL draft millions waiting for me, I'm saying sorry, sir. You are absolutely. I would be the biggest bootlicker of all time if I had an NFL draft bag waiting for me in a week. But I do love that he stood his ground, which is hilarious. But rambling here at the end. Regardless, appreciate anyone out there that watched. Hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys in the next one.
VVS stones, like this froze. Ice